Planning Commission to order. Let the record show that all are present except Commissioner Greenwood.
Oh.
And we have an agenda which is to approve the minutes and to also review the housing plan request for proposals. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as presented, or are there any additions?
I would move to do so.
I'll second.
Yeah, okay.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor vote aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. We have minutes from the previous meeting.
I'll move to accept the minutes.
You were there, so yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they were great.
Motion has been made, and is that a second for you?
That's a second.
Michael?
I'm a second.
Well, I don't know what you're all going to do.
Yeah,
That's just our plan.
This is our thing. You do what you want.
That's right, okay. Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes as presented. Any further discussion? If not, then all those in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion passes. Minutes are accepted. We have one item on the agenda, that's to review the housing plan request for proposals. I think it's nice that we had 4 proposals submitted, so I'm good to go through those.
Yep.
I don't know, Mike, how do you want to deal with this? I mean,
I'll offer a few suggestions, and then you can all decide if that makes
Okay.
any sense.
Mike,
Mike.
Michael?
Yeah.
What have we started? Sorry for all of that.
Yeah.
In any case, we just put a reminder of what we asked for in the RFP, and also what we told them about how we would be going through this review process. There's nothing firm or official about it. We don't have a scoring rubric or anything. What I thought was, if there were any of these 1 through 8 on the bottom of the memo that you thought when you read through the proposals that the proposal really didn't meet, we could use it as a weeding out tool. And then if there was anything in particular you had questions about or liked or didn't like about them, we could do that and then see where we're at. I mean, and if all other things being equal, we can just look at the money. But, all other things may not be.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions they didn't understand something in the proposal, or should we start with that?
Well, I did want some clarification on, for one of these, it really listed out like, oh, here are the people we've worked for before. And have you done any calling of any of these folks to clarify, did they do what they said they were going to do? And I mean, it says
No.
it here, but
No, I'm familiar with all 4 of these
okay.
firms. I think they'd all.
So you feel confident
Yeah,
in them?
any of one of them
regardless?
could do
Okay.
this job.
Yep.
But if you wanted to track down, that's why we ask, hey, how'd that project go? I did hear from the folks down in Winona, just because our city attorney's their city attorney.
Mhm.
He just wanted to let us know, hey, I was just down there working on this, and as far as he knows, things went fine with that project. So
Okay.
the rest of them would not be hard to track down if you wanted to get a firm reference. But like I said, I'm familiar with all 4 of these firms. So
Okay.
I made a call to Jim Boyd
Mhm.
regarding the Cook County stakeholder, or their work with Northspan RDC, ARDC, and
Mhm.
he said favorable things, that they have experience and knowledge of this area already. And I think in their proposal, they're also doing other things, so that was his comment to me.
Okay.
The one thing I did notice, I thought there were, the two firms, ARDC Northspan and the LHB proposal, both of those firms have had significant background in working in Grand Marais, not just for the city, but in varying
Yeah.
roles that they've played. The other two, obviously, didn't have any particular experience working here in the community. I don't know if that has bearing, but it is one of the things that we asked for was previous
Yeah.
city experience, if any, and those two, did,
I think there was some mention too, and I think it was in one or maybe LHB, the idea, since they're already doing work up here, that, that some travel costs or some of those things can be diminished or
Yeah.
managed. There can be some savings in that.
Yeah.
You know, these two organizations also have the highest bids, and so I'm not quite sure. You know, like, do we have a budget, or how much are we willing to spend? So I'm not.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's up to this point, I don't think we've talked about a budget. We've certainly not talked about that at the council level. And
We've speculated a few times, but that's all. We haven't said this is the price we're willing to spend.
Did anything pop out at you as?
Some of these prices are lower than I expected.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to ask. 'Cause it seemed like we had two that were like, well, 2 and 2. That seemed like
Yeah.
they were right in line with each other. And it's like, what? On my side, I was like, the difference is what? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
As far as I can tell, the difference is more about price than scope of work.
Okay.
That it seemed like maybe some of them had a different concept of the amount of effort it was going to take,
Okay.
or some of them just had a higher hourly rate.
yeah, and I think some of the times with professional contracts, especially, you know, those companies that may not be as familiar, they may not understand how the community works and maybe the timing, you know, the time it takes. And as with any professional contract, you know, they can come back and say, well, you know, it's going to take a little bit more to do this work. You know, and we've seen that happen, you know, where if you really don't quite hit it right, you know, they say, well, you know, if you really want to get this done and, you know, want to take it to the, but where you really want to get it, it might take a little bit more money. So not that I'm saying that these companies are going to do that, but,
Well, they both, I think in their bids, they put forth different amounts of hours that they're, you
Yeah.
know, one is sitting here and will do, you know, it's budgeting for 229 hours, another one 125, so,
yeah.
you know, and obviously the ones that round, then, you know, it's like 2 at 19 and 2 at 12, so
Yeah.
obviously there's more time being invested.
Yeah.
I have one question is, you know,
Yeah.
when I looked at the first proposal by
The
Northspan,
Oh, Northspan.
excuse me?
No, go ahead.
Oh, you know, that they were here in 2012 and did, you know, the Go Cook County Initiative, like, how different is what we're asking them, what's different between that and this?
It's completely different.
Okay,
So like the type of work that they did, it's a similar field,
yep,
but the questions that are being asked are completely different. And that work was focused countywide and not drilling down into any detail about some of these specific issues. And it really was a shotgun approach to all kinds of issues that deal with the economy locally in the
Okay.
county. Housing was maybe
One
one
of-
little piece of it, and they certainly didn't get down to the level that we're asking them to.
Yeah.
And it's also countywide, and we're trying to focus just inside the city limits here.
Yeah, I like the work that, you know, Northspan did on that project. You know, I think they're, you know, certainly have qualifications. I don't know their new director. You know, Randy Lasky had, you know, operated as director for that organization for a long time, and, you know, he retired. And, you know, I have no doubt that they've, you know, brought in some good folks to lead that organization, but, you know, the same is true with LHB. Michael Fisher has worked in projects in Cook County and in Grand Marais for,
Yep.
I don't know,
Well, he
25
started in the 80s.
in the 80s. I was going to say 30 years, but, you know, okay, 40 years. And,
I think 25 to 30 is probably in the
yeah.
ballpark.
And Michael owns property here, so he's, you know, frequently understands, I think, some of the political, you know, side of how things work. And
is that a conflict of interest or a bias issue or something? I mean, is that,
Oh, I don't
Well, I
think so.
guess-
I mean, I think it actually, you know, gives him probably a perspective that, you know, others might not have, just because he's kind of kept in touch with kind of what things, how things work here.
I think that's an
Yeah.
interesting question to
But
think
that
about.
is a good question though, Mike, because I
That-
think that it gives them a perspective,
Yes.
which I guess that could be political.
And do we want someone to be locked into how we think about things locally, or do we want
Exactly.
someone that's going to bring us ideas that we wouldn't have come up with?
but you don't know that either. I mean, you
No.
don't, we don't know, I don't know how he thinks. I don't know if he's locked in or if he's,
And
or if
with,
he's a voice
with
from the
Mike
outside.
Fisher, I wouldn't worry about that issue at all.
Okay.
He's a sharp operator. He would be
It's got an
very
impressive
capable.
resume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's done good work for us in the past.
I was kind of surprised. I went to everybody's website and did some Google searches.
Yeah,
what
good.
On the people.
I was kind of surprised that LHB didn't have anything about Cook County, their projects that they've done here on their website. I found that. So can somebody list to me what projects they have worked on? I heard North House.
Mm-hmm.
What other things have they done?
Well, what we've hired them to help us with, they're currently the city's engineer,
Okay.
and they've done architectural work for us, so they
Or
designed the Public Works facility.
Public Works, okay.
They've done a few small design projects engineering-wise for us. Prior to that, they helped us with the public process on the Highway 61 project at the very beginning.
That's right.
Prior to that, they worked for Cook County on doing a master plan for the county's community center property.
That's who that was.
Yeah, and that was CJ Hernandez working for LHB then, and then he's since been on his own as well. So there's been a number of projects like that where LHB has done public process. So like the last piece of this project that we're asking for, I'd be very comfortable having them do that for us. I mean, their number was also probably the highest on
But
that
that's
one.
what, I wondered why is that because they knew something about the way things work in Cook County?
It's
That
very
they
possible.
needed to spend a lot of money to convince us their plan is right? It's
Yeah,
the way
that's
I
not,
took that.
that's not the approach they
I
would
wouldn't
take.
take it,
No.
take it
No.
as that. I would say a lot of
They-
time to make sure that they engage
about
the
the
public in
engagement.
the way
Yes.
that's necessary, because
Yeah.
a lot of communities, you don't get the type of public engagement that you get here, and if you know that up front, you're gonna, include time to make sure you've got enough time to make that public process,
Yep.
valuable and produce something that you want, so.
Yeah.
Stacy, anything else? I mean,
Well, I have my opinion, but since I feel like I don't have a whole lot of experience in how to determine this, I'm going with my gut and what I learned off the internet, and I'm open to somebody else saying, no, you really should think about this. So I'm here because you've been through this before, and I want to make sure that I'm thinking about all of the things that should be considered.
but, and I think, each one of these firms is probably gonna bring their own particular skills and talents of the individuals that are involved in the project. As Mike said, I think all of them could do a good job. The question is there one that could do a better job? And that's where you start to have to weigh who the primary people are and what their focus is. So yeah, I mean, I'd be interested in hearing what your thoughts are in terms of.
My number one choice right now is HKGI.
Okay.
Just because I like their website. They talked, some of these other places used buzzwords that I thought, oh yeah, or it was just too confusing and not enough information.
Okay.
And the work that this company has done, I went to some, Columbia Heights, they just did a comprehensive plan. Huge project, and I scanned bits and pieces of it, and I thought, oh yeah, we need to know that. That part fits in here. They've done it for here. Golden Valley, they've done the ordinance whole thing for them. Now, I don't know, I didn't reach out to any of these places to say, were you happy with them?
I did,
but-
that's the one I did hear specific feedback about,
Okay,
from Winona, so.
Yeah, you said that you were familiar with all of these.
Yep.
What did you hear about this in particular?
Well, that the project that they did in Winona was well-received, that they did a good job.
With the Eagle Center, is that the one?
No, they did a review of their zoning, they did a rewriting of the ordinance down there. And I think they mentioned it in their proposal, but I know because, again, our city attorney is the city attorney down there, that he just wanted to disclose, he's worked with them before. It's interesting to me, that group is the one of the four proposers that proposed it in a slightly different way. The other three really stuck very closely to the structure that we suggested. And they said, well, we would do it a little different. We think we understand what you're asking for, but we would do it a little different, which I actually appreciate that. I like the approach that they're suggesting, so I wouldn't have any issue with going that way.
Yeah, I got the impression reading some of their different things about their projects that they have done is that they like to look outside the box. And I don't, I just appreciate that sometimes I think we get so set in, we should do it this way. And this group just seems to take a broader approach to solutions. So that's my opinion.
Yeah.
If I have any concern about them, it's that their number is the lowest.
Because they only have 3 people
I
and
kept
everybody else has
thinking-
4 or 5.
They've got
Well-
10 hours budgeted to do the regulatory review.
Yeah.
And they've got some magic formula on how to do it then, because
I was just gonna say.
That's
felt
what I
like
wondered.
that seems
if
a
it's
little
because-
low.
This person did it for this other place, and I thought, is that because you know what it should be and you can go through ours fast? I
Yeah.
did question that.
Now, they've said this is a not to exceed number, so, and we asked them to break out their cost for each component, so, the risk of not to exceed number versus you're concerned about the resources is you don't get as good a product in the end. Not really concerned about that, and like Tim said, oftentimes these projects, the scope and budget is adjusted during the project as everybody learns a little bit more about what's going to happen. And at this starting point, there's certainly a lot of room before.
We're catching up to the other guys.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, and there's nothing to say that even those that came in with a higher cost wouldn't.
They might do that
might,
too.
Might not come back with a similar type of request.
And they might just be being nice and they're just putting a high price tag because they don't really want to do it, but they'll do it if you'll pay this price.
That's true.
Well, we didn't ask anybody to do this kind of, here's our findings when we've got the housing data figured out. And that's what they added to this process, was let's take a step after we've done our look at the housing data and the regulatory review and share it with everybody, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's worth a lot. And so even if they were on par with price, I might like that just because of that additional piece.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts, Mike?
Yes. No, I looked this over and I was just kind of weighing them too, and I was looking at the dollars and thinking, like, well, but I don't know. I mean, I was just, LHB is the one I'm familiar with, and so that's where I was kind of like going towards. But then I had my questions answered, like why so much, and what could we get for that? What is part of that package? And the experience and being up here, and that's all good. But really, I mean, if they're all pretty good, and from what Stacy's saying, she saw these guys kind of standing out. And then you're pointing to the additional work or ideas that they have that they put together. I feel like, okay, that's good to me. But again, so ultimately the council's going to make the judgment call on that. Or
No,
is
this
this
is the study right here. Like this
Okay.
group, you're going to pick somebody you want. At 6:30, we're going to ask the council to pay for it.
great.
So
Tim,
uh,
get out your
hopefully they
pen.
will.
Well, that's what I said. The council hadn't talked about any kind of a budget for this.
Well, we'll just give you the budget.
I
Well,
think when
obviously this will help determine what that budget might be.
when we talked about what a budget might look like, just in speculative fashion with the council, all of these numbers are going to fit inside of that idea. So.
Yeah, the council has money set aside for its priorities to work on those.
Yeah.
So it's
And this
but
was
it's
one
not
of
it's
those.
not, but it's a larger sum of money,
Mm-hmm.
and this would be one portion of those priorities that come out of it. So,
Mr. Roth, let's maybe out.
there we are.
You said something about it, and I apologize for maybe making you explain it again, but like, let's say that we went with HKGI, and they, like, again, under the regulatory review, like, everybody else is 24, 30 hours, and this is 10. What happens if they realize, like, oh, we shot ourselves in the foot, that's just how it goes, you just say sorry?
When we'll have a contract that we will enter into with them, and we'll use this proposal as one of the exhibits to the contract.
Yep.
that talks about the fee and the scope of service and everything else. And we won't have any obligation to provide them with more money than we agreed to in that contract. There'll also be provisions to talk about, well, if the two sides want to discuss the scope or anything else, we can always go back and just have a conversation about it.
You could do that. You could say,
Yeah.
we like you, we're concerned that you're undercutting the hours that you're gonna need for this.
Or, yeah, explain to us how you think that you're going to be able to do it in 10 hours. Like,
Yeah.
what does that include?
Or have
And
they
if we
allocated-
could build more into it, or even if we just agreed to this, then, we've shared our concern with them and they do it, or they take 15 hours and we still pay them $860. And they feel like, okay, that we took that risk on and that was all right. Or they say, this is what we thought was going to be included in your regulatory review,
Got it.
and what you really want is this.
Right.
And so we'll do this for you, but it's actually going to take this many hours. And they can come
Right.
back with a proposal like that to us. And
Great.
But even doing the math on that, I mean, it's still going to be a better deal.
it's a pretty small risk factor,
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
I mean, even if they bumped up all those hours, it's still going to be less than, 18, 19.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about LHB was
Yeah.
how the level of detail that they spelled out. Even they
In
went
the
into the zoning ordinance scan. They actually listed some of the things that they thought were
Yeah.
already in our ordinance that they seemed to be familiar with, and suggested that this doesn't quite seem to be using current standards, and they talked about revisiting parking minimums, streamlining the
Oh, the
approval
parking,
process, lot lists and sizes, and so they're already starting to think about what these things might be. Whereas,
And that's where I don't know that this other place really realizes all the detail that we may
Yeah,
want to
well,
know.
that's-
So,
and I don't know, and I don't want to assume that they don't, but, at least with LHB, they kind of spell it out that they understood some of the complexities and some of
Yeah.
the issues that they might be dealing with. And-
I think they dipped their toe into every question
Yes.
that we're asking
Yeah.
in their proposal. They said, here's some data about one of the things you were asking for already, and here's a map. So you have an idea of how they're going to be performing their duties, a very clear idea.
Yeah. Well, even their workshop agenda, to
Yeah.
put together an agenda for a meeting that hasn't even, been formulated yet, but to have an idea with their past experience of how things work,
Yeah.
this is kind of how we think
Yeah.
needs to go.
Well, I was definitely, appreciated that they had experience already up here. Just in looking at their key personnel and the
Yep.
years of experience,
That was also.
sometimes I appreciate a novel approach, and sometimes doing something in a different way. And sometimes you get that with younger, hungry, but these are very experienced, skilled people. I appreciate that.
With LHB, Mike, are you familiar with anybody besides Mike Fisher? I mean, this Heidi Bringman, who comes out of the Duluth office, have you worked with her? Had any?
Not a lot.
I have not.
No.
I have not met her. I don't know. I mean, I don't know any other than the ARDC folks and Michael Fisher. I don't know any of these other individuals.
I've met Heidi. I don't really know her. I'm not familiar with any of their work, but I do have a lot of trust in Mike, and I don't think he'd put a team here that wouldn't do a good job. So.
we'd have two more Michaels.
I know. Can we really handle that?
They're Mike and Michael.
Yeah.
It's a little bit helpful.
Except Mike Fisher used to be Michael Fisher too, so.
Oh, so
Well, see, they've already adopted our
started
strategy.
it.
See, they've already, yeah.
When you worked with these two of these four, I think you have some experience. Maybe you've had some experience. Did you find that they were on time, within budget? That's one of the criteria. Do you have any experience or knowledge of that?
Well, I keep in mind, LHB is a large multidisciplinary firm that has offices. I don't know how many offices they have. I mean, not just a Minnesota-based company
Yeah.
anymore.
No, although primarily.
Yeah.
But Midwest.
They have hundreds of employees.
Yeah.
ARDC has 8, that are doing planning.
Yeah,
So-
and these other.
So how does that answer the question about do they have experience?
Delivering.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
My
We're
experience, my experience
We're just telling you what we know.
with LHB,
Thanks for your
working
question.
for the city, is that they have generally provided the services that we've asked for in a timely fashion. I mean, are there issues? Sometimes there are, but I don't think there's ever been a problem with LHB, and I've never had experienced a problem with delivery from ARDC Northspan.
Okay.
Recently we've had an issue with engineering costs from LHB that were quite a bit higher than we expected them to be.
Yes.
But that's kind of a different part of the company than would work on this. So I guess I don't share a concern that would cross over to this.
Okay.
When we've worked with Mike on planning related stuff, they've done a good job on time, on budget.
Okay.
And again, do you feel like the reason why the LHB cost is so high is merely because they understand?
I think they're generally high priced.
Yeah.
In
Yep.
they'll
Sometimes it is the
say,
brand.
this is what we offer. We are a high level of service and it costs more. And
Yep.
I'm not hearing a lot of things about WSB. Would it be
I was
sa-
not impressed
Would
with
it be
that.
safe to say at this
Yeah,
point we can
space.
just remove them from consideration?
Right.
it's another big interdisciplinary company like LHB. Generally a little less expensive, but I don't know a lot about them. I'm familiar with them and I know they do good work in a lot of different areas, but I've not worked with them.
Okay.
If we
Right.
wanted to talk solar, I think we should talk to them. but,
Okay. Okay.
They have a lot of experience in that.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the narrative substance to their proposal didn't have the depth that the others had. I don't know if that's because, I don't know why, but it didn't have, in my mind, it didn't have that depth of explanation as to what those
they were-
tasks would involve.
And so then if we were going to compare LHB to Northspan,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, probably two different approaches. ARDC, Northspan Consortium is, I think, much more traditional in how they do their work, and
Yeah, I think that was.
I think when you were saying earlier, to be able to think outside the box, I think I have more confidence that the strict planning consultants would be more adept at that. But that's just my personal opinion, and it's only based on my experience working with other planners and working with Northspan, ARDC. But,
Okay.
ARDC is not a for-profit corporation.
okay?
The Regional Development Commission is the RDC part of it.
That's right.
So this is a quasi-governmental entity, and their duty, their mission is to help communities like us do planning, so that's what they exist for. We do a lot of smaller projects with them, so we've certainly got a lot of experience working with ARDC. I think this project's probably at the larger end of things that we've been involved with them.
Okay.
But again, we don't have to overthink this. We're not asking for a whole lot of complex work here. So I'm confident they'd be capable of it. That, if it was just up to me and I was looking at them versus one of the other ones, it might come down to price. And, they're not competitive then.
Yeah. Yeah, which goes back to the HECI, sorry.
HK, yeah, I don't it's a
which one
funny
is it?
name.
But they definitely,
Yeah.
they budgeted 100 more hours to this project than HKGI. So that's like, that's why I come back to that original question.
And ARDC has the existing relationships with the data sources. They've done data collection in our community before. So I think they probably have a very good idea of how much time it's going to take them to do it the way that they would do it. So I guess I'd have a lot of faith in their budget.
Okay.
Whereas HKGI hasn't worked here, they don't know the folks, they can't just call Kyle and say, "Hi Kyle, it's us from HKGI," get all the data that the courthouse has.
Right.
But they've done this type of data collection. That's evident. You can see in some of the projects that they've included in their proposal, even the types of maps that we would like to see in our project. So they certainly know how to do that in general. And I don't know that we're that different here.
Yeah. Yeah, it does seem like we're coming to a dollars and cents part of it though, because, like you said, maybe we're not asking something that's so difficult for another company to do.
Well, then it becomes the question of, can they do it in the hours that are allotted and do the job that
And do it to the
we
level.
would expect of them.
And what was it that they
Guess
were
we
going to do
don't-
that you
don't know that,
appreciated? The HK.
They added what they're calling a housing issues workshop. So we asked for the first two things to be a lot of data collection about housing, which I think is really the biggest piece of work that needs to be done, and then a regulatory review of our existing rules. And they want to add in then this housing issues workshop where they review the results of that with us and with the community, which I think is a really useful, it's a good step.
Yeah, and I think that just would be helpful for us generally to communicate back with the community about what we're doing, what we're looking at, what we're thinking about, and then they have it too. I mean, how many people will come, who knows, but at least it's being put
Yeah.
back out there.
I don't envision that workshop as the primary tool to communicate with the public,
No,
but
it's
it
another
puts everything in
opportunity.
one place for us to use,
Sure.
to go out and communicate with the public,
Or-
which is very helpful.
Or glean data of opinions and concerns and things that maybe you didn't know.
Yeah.
Does it matter does it matter of the proximity of these companies? To be able to drive up here in 2 hours versus coming from, southern Minnesota. Does that matter?
They're out there, they're charging us for their time, so.
Yeah. It
That's-
certainly, you don't have to be here to collect most of this data.
Right.
So in that sense, I'd say probably not. One of ARDC strategies included a windshield survey.
Yeah.
And if you're intending to do that, it certainly helps to be close by. But I think they've all conceptualized how they're going to do the work and already included a budget for the travel that they imagine. So that insulates us a little bit from this idea of travel expense.
Okay.
And the cheapest one is already planning at least 2 trips here to do workshops with us. So that doesn't look like travel's too expensive for them.
Well,
So-
one of them has on this picture on their website. Looks like it's with his family on Lake Superior, and I thought, wonder if they have a cabin here. Is that why it was cheaper? Because I've
You
heard.
can stay at my cabin.
Could be,
Could be, yeah. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
We don't care.
I was coming up for
We-
reasons why
we
it
know
was
Michael
cheaper.
Fisher has a place here, but we don't know if any of these others have a place. We've seen proposals from many different consulting firms that have had, local ties to a place to stay. Well, your thoughts, Mike, if we make a decision on one of these,
You have to work with them.
any red flags or anything that you see that we should pay
I
attention
would be
to?
willing, I don't have any issues with any of them that I would disqualify them for.
Mhm.
And so I think that we'll be successful with any of them that you pick.
What are you thinking, Tim? You have an idea?
Not really. I think where we started out is that we have 4, good proposals. I think we're kind of narrowing it down to 2 that we're, seem to
Yeah.
be focusing on, which,
That makes
sooner or
sense.
later, we got to get down to 1. And I think there's,
I'm not sure what 2 we've narrowed it down to. I think we like I think including HKGI.
Yep.
In the
Yeah.
sense that we like that they might offer a fresh approach, and they are obviously from a budgeting perspective, they are economical,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
you know, so that's exciting. And then I guess I'm not sure, I can't tell between the two Duluth outfits that you are leaning towards.
Well, I thought
I'm
LHB.
LHB
Yeah.
over
I would be leaning
Northspan.
more towards LHB
Okay.
than the RDC Northspan.
It just seems like that's,
But, again, I mean, once we get to those, then you've got the difference between the price, which is, if that's an issue, I mean, I don't know that should be what we look at, I mean,
I think it's an important issue if you're satisfied that either of them will provide you the quality product that you're looking for. That the higher number is still well within what I think is a reasonable cost for this project. And if there's any concerns about the difference in the budget leading to a difference in quality product, then I would recommend the higher one. I personally don't have that concern,
Okay.
so.
you think the quality of the product will be essentially the same?
Well, I don't know whether I'd say the same, but I do
Okay.
think that either of them would provide us with a product we'd be happy with. So,
Okay, I'll move that we choose HKGI.
there's a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, there is a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Would you call them and just verify their regulatory review number is correct and not a misprint?
I would. Let's just kind of broaden that to the next steps and the process that you want to see happen. Because of some scheduling issues, this meeting is happening the day of the council meeting rather than the week before.
That's right.
So, if we don't go to the council meeting in the next 2 hours and ask them to authorize this, then we just wait 2 weeks and do it then, which isn't that big of a deal, if you don't think it's that big of a deal. If you just assume we get going right now, then I don't have any time to do any follow-up communications. And I don't think that's a huge risk factor, but it would be nice to just kind of check out a few of those things. And I literally haven't been here since these proposals were received, so I haven't had time to do any calls with any of these folks.
Well, I appreciate your question. I mean, I feel like it, you know, that seems to be one thing that's sticking out, you know? And let's say that, just out of curiosity, let's say that they review this and they say, you know, you're right, we're gonna put in this and it's gonna add to their budget and we get back closer to similar numbers. Are you still
I'm still okay with it.
okay?
Yeah, because I mean.
Even if they doubled it, they're still
Yeah.
under the other one.
That was kind of the thing.
That doubled the 10 hours. to
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
Yeah, or whatever. I mean, that it would take a lot for them overall to get up to that number, to get up to the LHB. I mean, I know that LHB is super quality, I'm sure, but
And just to clarify, if we vote for this, that you would go to the council and say, like, we
Well-
have made a pick, but
he would
No,
go
we
to the
would-
council, he could go to the council, but there would be no follow-up. We'd have to wait 2 weeks if we want to have some
Right.
follow-up before we.
Right,
And
and then you don't have any meetings scheduled then, so you're gonna have to tell me what parameters you wanna put on that follow-up, like what constitutes a red flag that you'd rather talk about again before the council gets a chance to.
And the motion would be to recommend this company to council, so, you know, council would take that as our recommendation.
Right.
Based
And
on
then
the fact that we
they can accept
reviewed
or
these
reject.
4 applications and found that we felt this one to be the best fit and.
We haven't provided these to the council, so they're not gonna do the same process that you've done. They're gonna rely on your process.
yeah, right.
I'm
Yeah.
assuming they are anyway.
But they'll get to see them tonight, presumably. Nope, okay.
Or so are you comfortable with them? I mean, or,
You know, yeah, again, I think that these are 4 good proposals. My only hesitation is I just don't have any familiarity at all, and again, like Mike, I was out of town until Monday night and have not had any chance to do anything other than read through the proposals and
Yeah.
but again, I think when you're hiring qualified professional planners, there's a certain level of expectation that they'll provide quality work. And, I mean, judging from their experience and what they've, presented here, I don't have any hesitation or, reservations about that company.
So, back to the concept that, to not overthink this concept. This is not a lot of work in the world of like hiring a planning consultant.
Right.
What are we really trying to get out of this? What we want is some direction and a kick in the pants towards doing some changes to our regulations to make the housing market function a little better.
To work well.
And you can get at that from a million different directions. It's not like there's a right way to do it, that we have to find the right person to do it. Any of them are going to give us, work on these 5 things, and we get to pick, whichever process we go with. So just based on that kind of, this is going to work regardless of which one we go with.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
All right, I think I would be ready to vote.
Yep.
You ready? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of the motion to accept, again, we're going to deal with this
Its name, yes.
yeah, letters and numbers, the secret code. HKGI, to do this housing study. Vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed. Motion passes. So this recommendation will be presented to the council tonight, and we'll have our
Here's my suggestion for how we do that tonight. That we will pass on that the planning commission's recommendation is to work with that company. And we'll give a brief summary of the discussion here. And we'll say there was one concern about if they had enough time budgeted for a particular item. And if the council has a preference on starting right away or waiting 2 weeks, then they can direct me to do some follow-up questions.
Everybody else had doubled the amount of time, and so
Yeah.
that was one thing that stuck out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'd feel comfortable with that, Mike.
Okay. That's all we've got for you
all
today.
right, no other business, we are adjourned.
Cha-ching.
Thank you. Woo, that was good. I can take a breath before
And welcome, Mike.
public utilities starts. One down.
Thank you.
One down, 2 to go.
Hey, thank you. Okay.